Welcome back, everybody, to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and today I'm joined by my friend Caleb James, the lead film analyst over at Arrowhead Pride. I'm going to get his thoughts on the ending of the Chiefs' 2025 season and where they go from here. So, Caleb, the Chiefs finished their 2025 season with a record of 6-11. They lost a clunker to the Raiders in Week 18 by the final score of 14-12. The offseason is here, but I want to get your thoughts on how this season ended and kind of where are you sitting, as of this early January date when the Chiefs aren't in the playoffs and we haven't really been in this position before.
Man, I tell you, after that Colts game, it just went downhill drastically. I mean, that was kind of a game a lot of people were like, they're going to dig themselves out of the hole. It's kind of the turning point against a good team. And it's been absolutely downhill since then. They've been losing games. They lost that game on Thanksgiving Day. They came back, lost to the Texans, lose to the Chargers. Mahomes blows his knee out, just terrible. And then after that, the season was over. It hasn't really mattered, and they didn't win anything. I think a lot of people were like, how are they going to strategically tank? And there was probably a little bit of strategics there with shutting down Rashee Rice, shutting down some key guys like that. But I just want everyone to look at the quarterback play you saw in the game this week with, the Chiefs had Shane Buechele, Chris Oladokun, and then the Raiders had Kenny Pickett and Aiden O'Connell out there. I want you to look at those guys and just say, thank you, we do have Patrick Mahomes. I know Mahomes took a lot of heat this year for people saying he didn't play his best, and he didn't. But you could also always be in a situation like that where you don't have a chance and you don't have any hope. And Mahomes gave them a chance this season despite all these flaws on the roster. But these last few games of the season, they just kind of emphasize these flaws and imperfections and issues. There's a lot of injury stuff too there, but I really think that kind of should help level this team out about where they actually stand.
After watching Chris Oladokun struggle and Shane Buechele come in and look better, but also probably not an NFL caliber backup, what do you think the Chiefs have to do to address backup quarterback this offseason, especially with Patrick Mahomes' status unknown for 2026?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be important that they get a guy in here who can possibly go in and play early if need be. I think there's going to be some options on the table, right? I think Gardner Minshew's probably one. He didn't look very good in the 6 plays he was in against the Titans, but also the Chiefs were down their 2 starting tackles at that point also, and they're just, when you're down your 2 starting tackles, you're kind of limited to what you can do as an offense in the NFL. I think Minshew is going to be in that equation. I think we could also see them possibly look at other veterans, maybe someone along the lines of like a Marcus Mariota type. I know a lot of people are going to want Jameis Winston. I'd be fine with that. I think he plays a little bit better from the pocket. The Chiefs may want someone who's a little more on the mobile side of things, but they're going to have to get a guy who I think is probably, on the north side of 30. It's not going to be like, we're going to develop some young guy and he's going to be able to come in here next to Mahomes. It's going to be a proven guy that Andy Reid and the staff can trust.
And for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career in Kansas City, the backup quarterback job is important. Like, you just can't go into the offseason saying, we'll just sign a Matt Moore or we'll just bring in a Chad Henne. They need to actually find someone that they would feel comfortable starting the season if Patrick Mahomes is not able to play. And so, there's going to be that pressure. But after the Chiefs finished their season, and honestly, the season was over, you could argue on Thanksgiving, but once Patrick Mahomes left, you knew the season was over. But where do the Chiefs go from here? They're going to have the 9th overall pick in the draft. They've got a ton of, holes on this roster, but also cap issues. So, Caleb, you're the GM. What are you doing first?
Need Travis Kelce to give you an answer because you got to figure that out. You got to figure that out because he's got to either be re-signed, which his contract going off the books, that's going to be helpful for the cap, but you got to figure out if you got to bring him back on some kind of smaller deal or what's going on with that, because that also opens a hole on your roster at tight end too that you didn't have before, partially because neither of the Chiefs' backup tight ends look like they could be starting caliber guys in the league, and that would be just one more position you need to fill. Second, you probably go ahead and move on from some guys like Jawan Taylor, Mike Dana, Drew Tranquill, some of these veteran guys who are going to be cap casualties, not bad players, but you're going to save money on the cap. And that should give you a chance to open a few things up. The Chiefs are fortunate. They've got rookies at left tackle now. Jalen Moore's still on a friendly deal at the other tackle. He'll probably be the right tackle to start the season. But then you start looking, and I think that offensively, you're probably going to want to target a running back in free agency, someone to pair with Rashard Smith. You're probably not bringing back Pacheco. If Kareem Hunt's back, it's going to be on July 29th. He's not going to do, I don't think he's going to be doing the OTAs and hanging out with everyone. But if it's training camp and you need Kareem back for that 1 yard, he'll be back then. But a lot of interesting running backs you can go after. I think they probably wouldn't go after someone that's going to break the bank. I'd be curious to see what kind of market Kenneth Walker is going to command. He's been an impressive player in Seattle. Breece Hall is going to get a lot of the attention. Some of these other guys are going to get the attention, but Walker's a guy I'd target. I think that with Mahomes being out, you need to be able to capitalize on your run game a little bit.
To kind of go back to your Travis Kelce comments, do you think that he could come back in 2026?
Yeah, I think he could come back. I mean, you take away these drop passes, and it's kind of funny. If you include some of these drops he had into his season total, he's probably close to 1,000 yards on the season. He finished with good numbers for a tight end in general. It's just not the elite Kelce Hall of Fame numbers. He's still better than 90% of guys in the league. Well, the interesting thing is going to be, though, is what kind of number is he going to want and what are the Chiefs going to be willing to give him? That's what it's going to come down to. I think cooler heads prevail with that. I think Kelce probably knows at this point in his career what he is. Money probably not going to be a big worry for him in the future here after the summertime is over, after his wedding. So maybe he gets the Tom Brady Giselle treatment to the Chiefs and just comes back for really cheap right now.
It's interesting because I don't think money will be the issue, but something that one of the hosts on Sports Radio 810 said is that this is going to be the first offseason in 8 years where Travis Kelce hasn't trained with Patrick Mahomes. And he's not going to go to the quarterback camp down in Texas and catch passes. And your entire offseason structure is going to look different because Patrick Mahomes isn't going to be training with him, or at least not physically training with him. They might still watch film and all that fun stuff, but that might factor into the equation on if Kelce does come back. But then you got guys like Chris Jones saying, I think that guy's going to come back. So I don't know what's going to end up happening. I hope he comes back because he was top 5 in most receiving metrics for tight ends. But, that's a very good point that you make, that the Chiefs are going to have to figure that out very quickly because this isn't an Aaron Rodgers situation where you can kind of just wait and see, is he going to play for us? Is he not going to play for us? You got to get that under the books because the Chiefs have a lot of cap stuff that they have to deal with. And I want to ask you about some of the, the biggest issues with this roster, and we'll do that right after this break. You can catch all of the best games with your crew at the Sportsbook at Argosy Casino and Hotel. Watch on their giant 41-foot video wall for the ultimate sports experience. Enjoy a winning combination of delicious food and game day excitement. Expect juicy burgers, crispy wings, and all of your favorite bar bites. Place your bets at the state-of-the-art kiosks that deliver a seamless betting experience. Their expert team is there to help you understand and answer any questions you have on sports betting. They have everything that makes a perfect game day experience all under one roof. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. The Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway is the place to be. With over 1,500 slot machines, 35 table games, 4 restaurants, and the Sportsbook, there are plenty of ways to find your fun. For more chances to win, follow their Facebook, Instagram, and X. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Huge thanks to the sponsors that support this channel year-round. Now, Caleb, I want to ask you, after watching this team kind of fall apart when Patrick Mahomes got hurt, I think it's easy to say that, the lack of a running game or maybe the offensive line breaking down, the defensive line. But what do you think is the biggest hole on this roster that they have to fix this offseason?
They have to come away with a couple of things: pass rushers and explosion in the skill positions. And with the pass rushers, they're going to have a chance to do that in the draft. I think the Chiefs are going to continue to draft heavily. There's good defensive tackles, good defensive ends in the draft this season, guys who are going to be impact type players. And the Chiefs are going to have a chance to get some good, some guys early in the top 50 picks that can do either of those things. But when I look at the skill positions, and this is going to be extremely important for Mahomes coming back from injury, I made a joke. I posted a video of Kingsley Suamataia jumping over a guy at the end of the game. I was kidding, but in my mind, I was like, well, that was honestly more athletic than anything I saw from a lot of the Chiefs pass catchers and running backs this year. I mean, how many endless runs do you have where it's just Pacheco or Hunt are just going in there and grinding it out for 4, and then you go back and throw the film on, and they could have had 8 or 9. I'm watching Brashard Smith this last week on runs that those guys would have gotten stuffed for 1 or 2 yards. He's making a cutback and getting 8. Like, you got to be able to pick up some unexpected yards here and there to take some of that strain off the offensive line. So I think having some explosion at running back is going to help. I don't think I'm necessarily in favor of drafting a running back too high. I know that you can get an awesome guy, but you can get an awesome running back a lot of different places. And I would also be in favor of just, another great receiver to bring in here and pair up with Rashee Rice. And that'll be even more important if Kelce doesn't come back. But you need some guys that can create some explosive plays. You need some receivers that can just get open one-on-one. Like a Carnell Tate, he didn't play great in the playoff game. Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, those are going to be the 2 top guys in the draft. Just guys that can kind of make their own plays out there. They're not like scheme-reliant guys.
Now, when it comes to the Chiefs' offensive scheme, Andy Reid's kind of talked about it, and you can't make those big-scale changes during the week when you're preparing to play another team. But do you think we see any significant changes to the Chiefs' offensive scheme? And if so, what do you think they're going to try to tune up?
I think this week you saw a little bit of it, just more under center. In 2022, the Chiefs were one of the best teams in the league. They ran the heaviest amount of 13 personnel of any team in the league. That's 3 tight ends. They had a good tight end room, though. They had Kelce, Blake Bell, Jody Fortson, guys who could block, do a little bit of everything. That's a solid veteran group you can get away with. This year you're watching it, it's Kelce, who's not really that great of an inline blocker, never has been that great, but always good enough. And then Gray and Wiley, who both struggle at blocking, so you can't really fool anyone with that or significantly run the ball. So that would be something I'd be looking towards somewhere. I'd like to see them do something different with the tight end room or figure something out. Maybe add a fullback to the roster just for fun. I'm not saying do anything crazy like run I formation every game, but at least have like a Michael Burton or Anthony Sherman type who can come in, just keep people honest every once in a while, and just start to play more balanced. And then with the pass catching, I mean, the Chiefs are a very, middle crossing team. They throw everything to the sideline. I would just like to see them come up with some looks in the passing game. And they do it sometimes with Rashee Rice, but it's just, let's throw the ball over the middle to where the guys don't have to stop and come back to it and run. Let's hit some guys in stride. Let's come up with some plays like this where we're not just relying on throwing to the outside, and we can kind of get these 2 safety looks splitting apart and then kind of find a little seam over the middle where Mahomes could throw those layered passes.
And, you mentioned that there's guys in the draft that can create separation, and that's something that these Chiefs wide receivers struggle to do. But even going back to the scheme, I feel like Andy Reid 3 or 4 years ago did a much better job at scheming guys open. I mean, we watched Justin Watson get like 6 yards of separation in an AFC Championship game. He did not have 6 yards of separation kind of talent. He was no shade towards Justin Watson. He just wasn't that guy. And I feel like they've got talent in that room. The issue is that, A, they're not getting open. They're not getting schemed open. And, you mentioned that you might need to go get another, wide receiver because you can't say Xavier Worthy's going to be a number 2 next year. You can't rely on Rashee Rice, A, staying out of trouble, B, staying healthy. There is a lot of holes on this roster but I think you make a really good point about not drafting a running back at 9, and I haven't given my thoughts on this, but the Chiefs have not picked this high since they drafted Patrick Mahomes in 2017. This is their first opportunity to draft elite-level edge rushing in the top 10. You can't get that guy at 32, but you can get him at 9. And I think if they come out with anything other than an edge rusher, or let's say if Carnell Tate does fall, I think that's acceptable. But with what we've seen, he might go in the top 5. Like, he is climbing up the boards. But before we get out of here, is there a pick at 9 that you'd be like, oh, I don't like that at all?
I mean, I like run. I love running backs. I love running the ball. I've always, had a passion for that, but don't make that pick there. And I get it. It could be an awesome player. It could be an awesome guy. There were 40 guys in the league this year that rushed for 1,000 yards at running back. That's like the most in quite some time in the NFL. You could find running backs, and none of those guys, there's a few of those guys that are first-round picks, but a lot of them are guys you just pick up in the second, third round of the draft, and they turn out to be just as good. And the Chiefs' offensive line, they created lanes for guys who weren't really good running backs the last 3 seasons. They'll be fine as long as you can get someone with some vision that can cut. You don't need like this big workhorse back. It's probably going to be back by committee again, but I would stay off of the Jeremiah Love train. I think he's an awesome player. He's going to be great somewhere. I just don't think it's what's right for the Chiefs right now when they have these holes on defense and downfield with, trying to throw the ball.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, if we're just thinking about the economics behind drafting a player, an edge rusher in free agency, the good ones don't come on the market because they get extended right away, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars to acquire a top-tier edge rusher. Saquon Barkley signed with the Eagles in free agency. Like, you can absolutely, like you said, 40 guys rush for 1,000 yards in the NFL. The Chiefs need to find one of those guys, and you pair him with Brashard Smith, and you can bring Kareem Hunt back for being a third or fourth down back, and you're fine. But, I think you also make a good point that the Chiefs' offensive line is schemed open ways for running backs to get yards, and they just haven't really done it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they got to be smart with this because, at defensive end, you're going to take a guy that you're looking to be a career chief. He's going to be a guy that he's not playing for anyone else, and when Chris Jones calls it at the end of his contract, that money you're paying him is going to go over to this guy, if that's the way you're thinking about it, or the money you paid to Travis Kelce all those years is going to end up coming back over to this guy or something along those lines. So that's just what you got to think about. And those are really the critical positions that teams struggle to find, that help win championships. The Chiefs have been lucky enough to have those guys through their dynasty up to this point, but now they're really in need of a serious injection along those spots.
And it should be a really fun offseason, and we're going to have so much draft content. Caleb's going to start pumping that out, but my final question for you is, where can the people find all of your great work?
Yeah, for sure. You guys can find me on Twitter at CJ Scoobs. I'm just doing some season wrap-up stuff for the Chiefs right now. We're getting some pre-draft stuff ready. We got some articles about some of these guys in the college football playoff that you guys can watch coming out here. Some really good players getting ready to play here later this week. And then check us out over at the website. A little bit slower probably this week, but we're going to start pumping up the work here. Draft season is going to be a good time, so is free agency.
And guys, all of Caleb's stuff will be linked in the description of this video. Hit that like button, subscribe for more Daily Chiefs content. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video. And as always, go Chiefs.